What is up, everybody, and welcome to our 2023 Budget Rifle Roundup. Jim to my right, Mr. Ryan Muckenhirn across from us right now. Jim, should we tell him?
Boy, just right away with it, huh?
Here's the deal. This is going to be listed. This is listed as a 10-minute talk. It's not going to be a 10-minute talk. There. What do you say that when you
did we just run out of spaces to slip a full lengther in, and we're just we'll just sneak this in on Tuesday?
We just we wanted to get a little spicy with it.
Just decided to not sit for this one. We had to stand.
Yeah, you may want to sit down because we have a lot to talk about here. We have 7 different models of budget rifles on the table right now. I counted them up like you would if you're on like a TV show hunting or counting points on a buck. You got to count them all.
Sure.
Ryan, we had some. You guys don't watch outdoor television ever? No.
Can't say I do. If I ever want to see it, I just go outside.
Oh, sick burn.
Well, sometimes you can't. We set some parameters here, Ryan. We had a monetary threshold that we were gonna stay under. Now, a couple of years ago, really not that long ago, our threshold might have even been around the $500 mark for a budget rifle.
Well,
they've gone up.
Inflation.
And a couple of really great budget models aren't on the scene anymore.
So we don't have them represented here?
No, they're not. There's a couple that aren't represented here. Just logistically, it was a little bit difficult to grab everything at one time. But a few models are no longer in commercial existence. RIP.
Did we say what our monetary? Did I say what our monetary threshold is?
$700.
Sub
$700.
$700.
You did, yeah.
Okay.
And that was defined as street price.
Yeah.
So you walk into your local retailer, and that's what you would expect to find that gun on the shelf for. Hang tag.
If you went to the manufacturer's website, you would likely see MSRP,
Correct.
Which is generally a little bit higher.
Can we quick do a list of the ones on the table? Because then I'm curious what the ones that aren't here that Ryan has in his head would be.
Okay.
So if we listed them real quick from furthest from the camera to nearest, what would that be?
We've got a Franchi Momentum, CVA Cascade, the Mossberg. Help me out here, Ryan.
The MVP, is it not? No.
4x4? ATR.
ATR. Yep. Sorry.
Patriot?
Yep, Patriot. All-terrain rifle.
Jim.
Patriot.
Help me out with this one. You ever see one of these before?
Never heard of it. That's a lie. Ruger American.
Yeah. This is the compact version.
It is. I noticed that.
Savage Axis.
Savage Axis.
Winchester XPR.
Winchester.
And the Browning AB3. Yes. So those are the models we're going to talk about today.
We don't have a Weatherby Vanguard synthetic. We don't have a Howa 1500, which is kind of a Weatherby Vanguard synthetic. We don't have a Savage Model 10 because we don't have the right edition. We have these guns, but we have them in more expensive iterations.
They're more expensive.
I've got that other Weatherby Vanguard here. It's actually in the studio right now. But yeah, that one's coming in.
Well, we have a Model 10 in the studio as well right now. But if there's going to be some things that people might be a little nitpicky on, some of the features that both of those rifles have, which brings them to a higher price point, add potentially some accuracy. And then a couple guns that are just no longer.
What would
rattle them off?
Yeah, what would fall into that?
Something from Remington?
TC Compass.
TC
Oh,
Compass.
sure. Yeah.
Remington 783.
Yeah.
That's the two.
Well, those are
primary
two examples. And then a few years ago we had guns like the Marlin XS7, XL7. Those are good guns. They're not here anymore. It's too bad. But
RIP.
We got a lot of great options here. A lot of these we see coming to the shop on a fairly regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
Very true. Very true.
Should we let's go through them in the order that we just
can we what do these have in common that makes them more budget rifles? Because if you look at a general bolt action rifle, they all just sort of look like sticks with a stock on the end, and some of them might have their fancy stainless barrels or fluting or whatever it might be. But I mean, how is it that one can get a $3,500, an $8,000, $10,000 plus bolt action rifle, and then meanwhile you can walk into your average sporting goods store and pick out any one of these, which don't look dramatically different, for less than $700.
Almost all of them are synthetic. In fact, all 7 of them are synthetic stocks. Big cost-saving things, right? So synthetic stocks can be broken down into a couple different styles of synthetic. We would have like hand-laid, hand-laminated, say like a carbon or a fiberglass or that kind of upscale synthetic stock. Or you have like a classic injection molded stock, which all of these have. So they're molded, which is not a bad thing. They're very durable. Generally pretty light.
Pretty durable.
Yeah. Yep. Impervious to the inclement weather and things like that. Really interesting thing, most of these have a variable shouldered barrel, which we saw, I'm going to say like commercially pioneered by Savage, where instead of the barrel shouldering against the receiver, so there's like a process involved at the assembly line where the chamber is cut, the barrel threads are cut, and that dimension is like calculated and executed with a shoulder on the barrel up against the receiver. A variable shoulder barrel has a threaded shank that has threads that match those of the receiver, and then they use a collet type barrel nut to set and control the headspace. So there was a number of years ago this big explosion of what we called the Remage, which was a Savage type barrel nut and barrel used on a Remington 700. I believe, James, you put together a gun.
I have 2
with a Remage. Yeah, that's right, 2 Remage guns.
My 6 arc and the 6.5 Creamer. Yeah.
DIY bolt gun.
Oh my gosh, almost absurdly DIY.
Yeah.
Like a guy like me doing it at my desk at work had no business with like 2 tools slapping together the most accurate rifle I've ever shot in my entire life.
Yep. Says that master mechanic.
Yeah, you built you welded that whole flatbed.
I had a torque wrench and some parts, and I just torqued them together. I think I was holding the whole thing between my knees in order to like hold it steady.
That's like building an AR.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
The gun shoots.
Way easier than building an AR. It does shoot. Anyway.
So we've talked about variable shoulders on the podcast before, on how and why that can make a really economical package kind of come together, right?
Yeah.
And so it's one less step in the manufacturing process in which somebody has to be there on the lathe with the receiver, with the headspace gauges, the whole kind of kit and caboodle, and you can go from bins of parts to assembled finished goods. So I see a lot of variable shoulders employed.
So can you explain a little bit how that works?
Sure. So like, let's look at this Mossberg here. This collet type barrel nut. So we go, if you're not watching this on the YouTube, so we have the receiver of the rifle.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's a seam. And then there is a thin piece of metal, a round shape, at least that you can see, and that's your recoil lug.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have this interesting collet.
Okay.
So it looks...
theirs is fairly camouflaged. You can really see it well on the,
the
Savage
axis,
here.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
It's very obvious that there's the places to put a wrench on it.
That collet is that variable component. So if we detension it, we can just simply screw the barrel out, moving it further from the bolt face, or we can screw it in, moving it closer to the bolt face. And then when we're happy with the headspace achievement, we can tension that collet against, in this case, the recoil lug. And we've set our headspace, secured our barrel, and life is good.
Gotcha.
Versus this here, Franchi Momentum, you'll notice the curious absence of that variable shoulder collet.
Gotcha.
So this barrel is, in fact, shouldered against the receiver. Just like a Remington 700 would be, or a Tikka T3, or a Winchester Model 70, or a Browning A bolt, Axe bolt, many of the other classic bolt-action firearms that we're all familiar with. And it's not a bad thing. It's a easy way to quickly and in mass get rifles put together that are in safe and proper functioning headspace. And if you're a builder, pretty easy way that'll allow you to change a barrel pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, which one is? You're talking about
variable shoulder.
The variable shoulder.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I was
Yep.
thinking. This way, like the Franchi over here, like you were saying, where it's shouldered against the receiver, is actually not something that your average person can start to mess with.
Not unless your receiver is... There's kind of like a a group of receivers out there. Most of them are builder guns. There's a couple factory rifles that their receiver dimensions and thread tolerances are such that you could get a pre-fit.
Oh, okay.
In which case, that's the easiest thing yet. I mean, then it's just you break your barrel off and you torque it back on.
That is very nice.
Life is good. So we've mentioned that in the Tika podcast before. They use a fixed shoulder, but their receivers are so keen and well thought out that you can just take a barrel off, put a barrel on.
Gosh, that's nice.
It is. But that might not be the spirit of these guns, right? So we're looking for an economical, reliable, accurate hunting rifle. And if it comes with a variable shoulder, so what?
So
yeah. So that is those two things. I see a lot of these in common. And something that we've talked about before on the podcast is this very curious bolt. So this is a fat bolt. So the bolt body is the same diameter as the bolt head, and it's one piece, which is really clever. So the Franchi has a fat bolt, the CVA has a fat bolt, the Ruger has a fat bolt, the XPR has a fat bolt, and the Browning AB3 has a fat bolt.
That's one thing that I was definitely going to point out, that you see a trend in this, this bracket. 3 lugs. So in the fancy custom gun world, the 3-lug bolt, that's, we get this abbreviated bolt lift and all these things that people talk about. 3 lugs, that being a huge merit. Well, they all come standard on these.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The only ones that don't have it would be the Mossberg and the Savage on this table.
Correct. Which is really interesting.
That is.
Yeah. Savage still employs their floating bolt head on the axis, which is neat. There's some neat and curious benefits perhaps to that, depending on who you talk to. As a owner and shooter of several Savage rifles, I can tell you they all shoot good.
Floating is neat.
Yeah, floating is neat.
So now, should we go in order?
We certainly...
One more thing.
Oh, yeah.
A couple of these guns have a very unique trigger, and that's what I think a lot of people will refer to as AccuTrigger style trigger, where they have this safety blade inside of the trigger shoe.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them don't.
Yep. That would be Mossberg, Ruger, and Savage here. All have that.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. No, there aren't any others on the table.
All right, I'm done talking.
How about magazines? Are they all detachable box style magazines?
Yes, except for the Momentum. That's a hinged floor plate.
Sure enough.
Which is when you're looking at how to build an economical rifle, you'd think that a detachable box magazine would be an expensive component. Mm-hmm. But in reality, it's pretty easy to do, especially if we're doing a molded component. So we're able to eliminate some internal componentry, like an internal box mag, which is generally a piece of spring steel. Sometimes they're solid, depending. There's a floor plate. There's a couple of hinge pins that are involved there. Some just different mechanisms that are going on there. A hinge floor plate, some people say, is a little bit more classy. A detachable box magazine is a little bit more utilitarian. In reality, a detachable box mag probably presents the manufacturer with a more affordable route than does the hinge floor plate. Yeah.
The old A-bolts, Ryan.
Both. Yeah.
You know me, Jim. I can't make a decision.
I
want both.
I know.
Were you the guy that would carry the auxiliary magazine in the pocket, drop the floor plate, rip the expended magazine out, and put a fresh one in?
Or wait, what?
So the A-bolt, what you're talking about is it's a detachable box magazine on a hinge floor plate. So you could rip that off and put a new one in.
Oh, yeah.
Did you carry 2 mags?
I always carried 2 megs.
Never changed them.
Yeah, you never. You kind of that's a hope for the best, plan for the worst.
Understood.
Sort of scenario.
Understood.
Or you lose a mag, then you got an extra mag.
On my A-bolt, I like popping that open. Boop, and it presents that magazine on the floor plate like vertically, and I can load it vertically. It only holds 2 shells, but I can put them in there and close it up.
It only holds 2?
Mine does. I have an A-bolt 12 gauge.
Oh, okay. That would make sense. Yeah, I've got 2. I've got a 6.5 Creed and the old Wisdom that we talk about all the time. But yeah, I like that. It's easy. You just pop it right in, click, off you go. Of course, these pop in and click.
Couple of different
clicking and popping.
Couple of different safety styles too. So there are tang safeties on some of these guns. There are like 700 style safeties on some of these guns.
Mm-hmm.
That there are.
The Browning's got a tang, I believe. The
Ruger,
Savage, Ruger. Yep.
What? Yeah. Yeah, there are. I keep looking over it because I know we were going to start with the Franchi, and I keep looking at it, and I'm like, where did this come from? I've never heard of it.
Italy.
I know where Franchi came from. I didn't know they made a bolt gun.
Yeah.
How long has that been a thing?
Momentum's a pretty new gun. A couple of years.
Is it?
Yep.
Okay.
Very nice rifle. Very nice rifle.
You like them?
I do. Excellent triggers. Phenomenal accuracy. I really like the action. I don't think Mark cares for it as much as I do.
What's the deal, Mark?
I was just less drawn to it than some of the others. And then Brian was like, "Oh, I love it," which I found like I think that was like there's nothing wrong with it, by the way, but I found it interesting, and it just goes to show like people will appreciate things differently.
If I had to take a guess as to which one Mark is drawn to, it would be boop, 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 boop. The Browning and the CVA.
Well, I think we can save this for the end.
Okay, all right. I just can't help myself. Is that okay?
God, you know me good.
The Franchi is very cool. We still have some of the marketing stickers on here. It has a bolt. We talked about the bolt a little bit. Ultra smooth, efficient, solid operation. And an Aurelia trigger. That's what you're talking about there, Ryan?
That's a nice trigger.
It's got a 7-year warranty on it. That's what that tag says over there, too. How about that?
Some of these...
Got a threaded barrel, too.
I was going to say, some of these are threaded. Yeah. A lot of them are.
I like having a threaded barrel.
I'll tell you what.
Why not?
Gives you options.
You know,
why do guns even come unthreaded anymore?
We've talked about this. You know, I was poo-pooing of suppressors for a long time, mostly because of their inconvenience, cost, and the heinous tax and wait time involved with them.
Okay, the last one I understand. I don't know about the inconvenience.
Well, it's... Jim, if I'm going to be a stick in the mud, I'm going to have several reasons why. None of them have to matter.
That's true.
Now I'm all about them.
I know.
And now I'm crazy about them. I agree. I think if the gun can be threaded, it ought to be. If not for a suppressor, a muzzle brake.
Right.
Or just the option.
Yes, I like options.
But I would assume, that's an extra step. It's an extra thing. That's going to add to the cost of the production of the rifle. I don't know how much, or
Well,
but,
I mean, it's a significant step to be done correctly.
So it's cool to see it on several of the models here. The Franchi, the Browning has a brake on it.
It does. It actually has a brake. Did it come with that brake?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, none of these came with brakes. They just came with threaded end protectors.
Yeah.
What's this Franchi chambered in?
Mark, I yield to you.
Most of these are going to be 6.5 Creed or 308 that we have on the table here, but lots of different options. I mean,
in the Franchi, there's lots of options.
Yeah, let me see what I got going on here.
Jim's courting himself a new Franchi Momentum.
If for no other reason than I like to just say the name.
What else can I get that in?
Well, it's new for me. I hadn't seen it until I walked in here and we were getting ready for the podcast, and I'm looking at all these. I'm like, yep. What is that?
Give that thing a handle, Jim.
You know us. We wear our microphones on the wrong side,
That's
apparently.
True. Yeah.
So if I try to hold it up to my face, you're going to hear just a bunch of...
Many different models.
Many different models.
I can get them on... My printouts are failing me, Jim.
This is my favorite part.
This is an excellent printout.
That's an email. Here. That's an email with some notes on it.
Is it, though?
Yeah.
I think you actually... How many ads did you print out? A lot. Oh, this is a great one. This is quality printouts.
Talking about some of those rifles that aren't on the list here. Again, it's not because we discredited them as viable options. We just simply didn't get them right away. So my hat tip to the Weatherby Vanguard and the Howa 1500, for instance. Great rifles.
Ryan, what do you think about...
that Weatherby's coming in at $660.
Yep.
Yeah, man. It's a pretty fine rifle.
Dang right.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, what do you think about the stock here on the Franchi. It has the integrated into the injection molded stock, integrated sling swivel attachments or pickup points.
Yep.
Is that a good thing in your mind, or where are you at with that?
In general, I think it's a good thing, so long as that point of integration and contact is robust. So, sling swivel studs. Actually, Mark and I were just having this conversation the other day about sling swivel studs, and we take for granted every rifle these days seems to have one. If you're looking for an aftermarket stock, does a shooter elect to select a gun that has sling swivel studs, or do you go with something like a flush cup? And, there are different ways to attach slings. I like both. I prefer a flush cup if I can get one, mostly because I can't rip a sling swivel stud, a flush cup out of the stock, egg the hole, and goof something up. Also, sling swivel studs coming into contact with things during the recoil sequence can dramatically change how your gun behaves.
Yeah, that one's
and if you've ever pinched your hand between a pack frame and a sling swivel stud and a 300 Weatherby.
That sounds oddly specific, Ryan.
The proverbial hammer to the finger.
I don't think that. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, like, for the reason that you mentioned, where you can't rip one of these bad boys. I mean, if it's constructed well, you can't rip one out.
Sure.
I've had sling swivel studs before, where you're looking at that and you're like, okay, I'll rely to put my sling swivel on it, or maybe even like a Harris bipod, and you just, for whatever reason, you just like, oh, let me just check that, and it's loose, and you're like, oh, okay, good thing I didn't put too much trust into that yet. Now this, you could put, it appears there's a threaded area to put a sling swivel in that would accept a Harris bipod or something. This doesn't seem like it would be fitted to do so.
Yeah, you pop that little rascal out, it's going to expose a threaded receptacle. You just thread that sling swivel stud right on in.
Well, someone was thinking.
Yeah, that's sharp.
Mark, are you prepared to move on to the CVA, or I see you're on Franchi's website now, which is also what you printed out, but somehow the printouts really didn't.
They didn't do it. When you're printing websites, they can be. It's got an MOA guarantee on it.
Thank you.
When you're printing websites,
that sounds like it's something illegal. I was just over at Mark's over here just printing websites.
I'm just some websites. But he literally does.
Where do we get? All I wanted to know was what cartridges it's offered in.
Well, that's what I'm trying to find. Now I might butcher this. It's got the Relia trigger. Relia.
I mentioned
you did
these.
Mention
these are on the stock right now. You don't even need the website. You don't even need technology. It's right there.
It's adjustable. Did you mention that it's adjustable?
I didn't mention that it's adjustable. That's
so
pretty neat.
I think that's a noteworthy feature.
It must be adjustable via some pads that you can put in between the
Jim, to answer your question.
It's got a nice recoil pad on it.
6.5 Creedmoor, 308 Winchester, 300 Win Mag, 243 Winchester, 270 Winchester, 30-06 Springfield, and 350 Legend.
Oh, okay. So there are some options.
That's just the standard Momentum.
There are some options.
There's a couple of different versions of this. So, like, take, for instance, the Elite Varmint. 22-250, 223, 224 Valkyrie, which is neat.
Yeah.
In the Elite version of the Momentum, you can pick up 6.5 PRC.
Oh.
They have an all-terrain Elite, which looks a lot like a scout rifle. 308 and 223 only.
You don't say. Yeah, well, those are the cartridges I'd select if I were making something look like a scout rifle.
Absolutely.
Clearly they're all in on it because, I've seen where some companies will come out with a new bolt gun and the only cartridges that they offered in are 308 for sure, 6.5 Creed probably, maybe 223, and that's it. And you're kind of like, hey, those are popular. They're going to check a lot of boxes with that. But like, sometimes I wonder when I see that, I'm like, are you really all in on it? Heck, when Ruger came out with the American, which we talk about all the time, they came out with it, and still to this day, I think you can get a Ruger American in basically everything that exists.
7.62 by 39.
That is correct. So
leave no stone unturned.
None, not a one. So cool to see that they have so many options. That's all I was getting at.
I think that's mostly it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you, as we move on towards the CVA, I noticed that the difference is, you mentioned that they have the similar style bolt. The Franchi's is fluted.
Yeah.
The CVA's is not. There's a mixture of, actually, I realize there's only 2 fluted bolts on here, and the rest are just kind of like solid pieces of metal. Is it a little bling? Is it some action bling, Ryan, or is there really something going on with the fluted bolt?
It's mostly bling, but there is something going on in there.
Well, okay. So like, what in theory should it be helping?
So in theory, this rifle's bolt diameter is larger than that of, say, a Model 700. Or if we're looking at like the Axis or the Mossberg, you would look. The bolt heads are larger, and so the bolt body does not come in contact with the sidewalls of the receiver at any point in time unless there's like a ton of slop in there. So if you get a bunch of crud inside of your action, you go to cam your action open, that crud has two opportunities. Either we have mechanical retention of bolt and receiver just due to like an interference fit, or it can flow into a groove and get out of the way, and then we can manipulate the bolt.
Okay.
There is a potential to save a little bit of weight. I challenge that in this case. These flutes are very shallow.
Yeah, they're not deep.
Understand that if they were very deep, wide flutes, we're talking about steel. Steel's pretty heavy. If you've got a flute that's maybe, 3/8 of an inch wide by, maybe a 1/4 of an inch deep, if the bolt had enough material to allow that, you'd be moving significant amounts of weight off that, especially if you do a spiral flute and you can chew up a lot of that surface area on that bolt. You'd move a lot of weight out of there. For the most part, it's aesthetic. There is some function gained with it. I believe that the initial bolt fluting was done as that, a reliability thing in either inclement weather like a frozen bolt or in a muddy, sandy, icky environment.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know.
On the old Cascade here, Ryan, what's the footprint of that bolt then?
It is, by footprint, do you mean style?
Yeah.
A fat bolt. Yeah, so 3-lug, just like the others that we were looking at. So I think this is always cool, too. They employ this fancy side bolt release, which for a long time was called like a Nasica-style bolt release. Mm-hmm. This was an expensive upgrade if you were taking a Remington 700 and you were giving it that bolt release instead of the in-trigger guard bolt release. So here again, fat bolt. This one just a lot less geometry carved into it than the Franchi, but a fat bolt.
Stock is camo.
Yeah.
It's the only one on the table. It's camo.
Don't set it down in the weeds.
Love that.
Got a Cerakote.
I was going to say it looks Cerakoted barrel. That is a nice thing. That's on some of these more affordable level firearms. I find that the finish, in my experience, has been more prone to moisture and rust, and I don't know what process. It appears to be on most of these just a bluing process, but I don't know. Like there has to be differences in bluing process. Like not all blued rifles, the bluing is done exactly the same.
Not all blued rifles are blued.
Well, okay.
Some of them have like a black nickel.
Okay.
Applied through like an electrical process in which we're plating, and sometimes that is contaminated and sometimes that goes poorly. I've seen a lot of finishes on really nice guns, especially like very expensive semi-automatic waterfowl shotguns have some of the worst finishes that you can come across.
Really?
Yeah, through an electroless nickel process, and they immediately rust.
Yeah.
The big turning point in my career was when I bought a new, very nice semi-automatic shotgun and promptly spray painted the barrel black.
Oh, you.
That's when I knew right there, I'm okay with this.
Yeah. I got my Browning Synergy, which isn't the epitome of fancy double barrel shotguns or 2-barrel shotguns, but I Cerakoted the barrel black immediately.
And you know what? It doesn't look that much different. Now, if your gun was a high luster finish, obviously that would look a lot different. But when we look at like a lot of these matte blued finishes, a flat black Cerakote application is faster. I would have to do like a cost study. So I blued a barrel before. Mm-hmm. That was a pain in the butt.
I bet.
Now
it looks like a pain in the
butt. So I had to remove bluing finish, and I had to like even out the grain structure of the metal. So I had old bluing. I had to remove it, and then I had to even out that grain and make it look good, so it didn't look like I sat there with emery cloth and did this for 3 days. And so maybe that's like on the far end of the extreme there. I would surmise that it would be more cost effective and time effective to simply take a barrel, post machining, everything set up, a barreled action for that matter, hit it with some aluminum oxide, and Cerakote the dang thing.
Yeah.
It's an impervious finish for the most part.
And they have so many finishes now. Like
Yes.
you said, you can do it in a way, if you don't want it to be noticeable, you can do it in a way that you would never know.
Yep.
Right.
And if you do want to do something fun, you can. And, I mean, it's so nice to be able to, like, how many barrels? I know I've seen a number of barrels. Either they come through the showroom, or I've bumped into people at events, or even they've been my own, where you'll even see literal outlines of hands in rust in the barrel beginning to form. And it's just that stuff that you always got to be worried about. Whereas you do the Cerakote, and, you know, in this case, it comes with it done, which is nice.
Yeah.
That's a nice upgrade.
It is a nice upgrade. So, like, you can grab that thing by the barrel. You can take it out in a wet environment and come home. Maybe run something down the board when it's all done with that, just to keep the inside nice. But you don't have to worry about the outside. And when we went out to the Vortex Extreme a couple years in a row, I remember I had my Ruger American before I had it Cerakoted. And even just, I didn't even touch it. It was just, it flew. You know, like you just put it in the plane and it flew. And by the time you take it out, you're like, what's all this like reddish brown tint?
Interesting.
You know, it's just
that wasn't a professionally applied window tint, Jim. That was surface corrosion.
Yeah, that is correct. So anyway, I'm all for either stainless or having, you know, Cerakote applied. I think that's great.
Yep, I agree with that completely. I hope that maybe some of the firearms manufacturers will say, hey, you know, somebody invested in a budget rifle. It might have been the most that they could invest in that gun. Let's get them into the next 10 to 20 years of service life and give that thing a really strong and sturdy finish like Cerakote.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and plus, too, a lot of people, this is their first gun.
Sure.
So they're worried about a lot of other stuff other than the finish of their firearm.
I'll tell you one thing that'll strip finish off a gun like you wouldn't believe is blood.
Oh, sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you go ahead and field
blood
dress
is a wild thing, man.
There's
a lot of stuff in there.
You field dress yourself a pronghorn, whitetail, mule deer, elk, or moose, and then touch the finish of your firearm. And I think it's not your gun. Somebody's got a gun here that they had snatched the receiver. It was a Browning BAR. Post field dressing to sling the gun, and there are 4 fingers on the receiver from where a bloody hand had touched it.
Wow.
Yeah. And it just started a chemical process that erased that bluing.
Yep.
So the old CVA Cascade.
It's a good rifle.
It's got some extras, like I said, threaded barrel, nice synthetic stock with kind of more of like I guess I'd
tacky
call it
finish
like
or
a
something.
is that like a Duratouch finish-ish type thing?
Kind of.
A little bit tackier. Comes with
bases.
The bases.
That's a big deal.
2-piece.
That's a plus.
It's still better than not. I'll say one thing, a challenge that we've had with the Momentums is finding customers mounting solutions.
Okay, interesting.
Yes.
Oh, is it a proprietary?
It's a 700 footprint, but not hole spacing dimension.
Yeah. 2-piece bases, though. You know,
threaded Cerakote comes with the bases. Bolt. I like the lift. You know, and smooth.
Yes.
I find the action nice and smooth. So,
CVA. To some people, primarily known for their muzzleloaders, or single shot firearms. So, have they had this for long?
Few years.
Few years.
Yep.
I mean, I know that it's been around for a little bit. I at least recognized it when I came in.
Not long.
But yeah, I don't think. I mean, has bolt action rifles for them been a very long standing thing in general?
No.
Okay, got it. No. So yeah.
The Cascade is pretty new on scene.
I think that's their first bolt action rifle.
Relative to their
says right on the website I printed off, Jim.
Relative to their history as a firearms manufacturers, Jim had alluded to Connecticut Valley Arms. Big in muzzleloaders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They do a real nice job.
Yes. And muzzleloading accessories as well.
Good on them for getting into the bolt action game, you know?
So, you know what? I'll say this. Absolutely my favorite brand of muzzleloader for not custom prices.
Sure.
Right. So I go, you buy a muzzleloader or you build a muzzleloader, and unquestionably you get the best performing rig out of their muzzleloaders as well. And these Cascades are no slouch.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Would you like the chambering list, Jim?
Why not? You found it this time.
How much time you got, buddy?
They got a lot. Oh, wow. That's an extensive list.
270 Winchester, 30-06, 243, 65 Creedmoor, 308, 450 Bushmaster, 350 Legend, 22 250, 65 PRC, 7mm Rem Mag for you, Ryan, 300 Win Mag, 223, and the old 204 Ruger.
Hey, there's a cartridge that's soon to be a lead balloon.
I like that one. I don't own one, but I like it.
Well, you're contributing to the lead balloonness.
Part of the problem, not part of the solution.
That's right.
Okay, CVA Cascade.
Got it.
In the books.
The only one next is or the only one with what appears to be a stainless barrel, or is that Cerakote?
That's stainless.
On the table. None of the other ones have stainless barrel. Doesn't it kind of look Cerakoted though? Kind of. Back here.
This
doesn't look stainless.
I think you're right.
I think it may be Cerakoted to appear stainless, but hey,
that's good.
Not bad.
Probably even better, right?
Depending on who you are.
The Mossberg Patriot.
The Mossberg Patriot.
This gun's been around for a while in some iteration or form.
Came out very shortly after or about in tandem. I can't remember with the Ruger American.
Right.
And obviously, I mean, you can tell they're direct head-to-head competitors when you got American versus Patriot.
Like a Remington 700, but also like a Savage.
Explain. Oh, because of the bolt?
Because of the way that they do their bolt is pretty interesting. So
the bolt reminds me. Okay, tell me if I'm way off here, Ryan.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little of my Lee Enfield.
Sure.
Just the multiple pieces at the rear.
Yep.
There's something reminiscent.
So, bolt body, bolt handle, bolt head. Mm-hmm. On a lot of guns, if it was truly a 700 style bolt, this and this would be one piece.
Right.
Either machined as such or brazed together, preferably machined as such. This bolt head is removable, which is like a Savage. But Savage does theirs a little bit differently. So, like a 700, but like a Savage, somewhere right in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There you go. Do you think it's like you get best of both worlds in some ways, or what?
I think you could afford yourself as a manufacturer a little bit easier time on configuring guns for different calibers.
Okay,
so
right.
This bolt could work for a number of different chamberings, but if you had different bolt heads, you wouldn't need different one-piece assemblies. Mm-hmm. You would have a bolt body, and you would have bolt heads, put them together, put the pin in.
Yeah.
And now it's, 473 bolt face or, 545 bolt face or whatever you had to do.
Talk to us about lugs, Ryan, because this has two. Yeah. We mentioned on the many other models on the table, there are three. And, well, heck, when you go to like a Weatherby, there's a bunch, isn't there? There's like 6 or something.
Well, I mean, there's 6 or 9, but really that's 3 with a bunch of cuts in it.
Well, okay. Anyway, so 2 versus 3. Mm-hmm. Does that make this, inherently weaker in some capacity to the 3-lug ones? Or, I mean, clearly, I don't hear stories of Mossberg Patriots blowing up left and right, so it's, must be it must be adequate.
Yeah, it is. Okay, it's totally adequate. You do afford yourself, generally observed anyways, a slightly shorter bolt throw.
Okay.
With a 3-lug system. Some people will say that there's an aligning improvement to the bolt running through the receiver. I don't know. Some people will say that a 3-lug bolt can facilitate better extraction from the magazine, like feeding. Because now you have this, depending on how the bolt lugs are timed, you'd have a lobe that would run down that would act as a scoop for your cartridge out of the magazine. Classic push feed guns, pretty darn reliable, unless you're shooting upside down. Then you short stroke, and then you might end up dumping a round out of your magazine.
Okay, so a reminder: don't shoot upside down and short stroke the
bolt. For all you classic Winchester Model 70 control round feed guys. I mean, it's been a standard now for a very long time.
Right.
And I'm certain at some point there was some inadequacy in comparison to either a control round system or a multi-lug system, more than 2. But, I mean, the Remington 700 is still a very, very popular action.
Extremely.
And its derivatives and clones and such.
Yeah.
So they seem to work just fine. But you do get a little bit of a bolt throw difference. That's for real.
Yeah, you can see it here. It's a little taller than the other ones.
Yep. But these have been good guns. They've never been earth-shatteringly beautiful, but functional they are.
Sometimes that's all you need.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, looking at I'm on the website right now. This is the MSRP price, $553.
There it is, synthetic Cerakote. So we are looking at Cerakote.
Hot dog, look at that.
That was the MSRP is $553.
Mm-hmm.
My goodness, today's day and with today's economy, that's a good.
So
price there.
Cerakote comes with the bases.
Yeah, my favorite thing is getting pictures from customers when they've gone on cool hunts that I've never gone on, and they've taken sheep, caribou, moose with a K, moose and musk ox, and I see a picture of a gun like a Mossberg Patriot or a 4x4 and ATR. And cool. I love that. That's my favorite. Like, that guy bucked convention. Somebody told him he needed some sort of multi-$1,000 custom rig, and he says, no, this one shoots really good. I'll take it.
I mean, we've talked about our very own Paul Neese went on a Doll sheep hunt.
Probably the first guy to kill.
And he had a rifle that he had bought essentially specifically for a mountain type hunt. It was a very nice rifle, but it had a malfunction that he wasn't able to get sorted out in time, and he had an old Ruger American that just absolutely hammered. And he brought that and killed a darn Doll sheep with it.
Capital Doll sheep, too.
Yes.
Really nice ram.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just mentioned it, and it's
might
the
as
next
well.
one on
That's
the
a
table.
nice little segue.
Yeah. And I'd say, other than obviously the bolt is a different design, but again, American versus Patriot, like you can just tell by the names that these two are neck and neck. They're designed to be, competing against one another. We talk about the Ruger American all the time because I do believe the Ruger American was first on scene compared to the Mossberg here, and so you think I'm off there?
Yeah, the core functionality of the Mossberg, like the action itself, predates the American.
Well, no, I'm talking about literally this model of rifle. I believe came out like Ruger was like introducing the all-new Ruger American, and I believe shortly afterward Mossberg released the Patriot.
Got it. Sure. So
I'm just saying that's part of the reason why I feel like we've had these around more often, because I think we just bought a bunch of them when they first came out and then didn't really need any more after that.
Right.
Well, that's a lie. We always need more, but it just became weird.
I still don't own one, and every year I talk, I should just buy one of those things.
You should. It's easy.
There's no reason not to. The Ruger American, it goes without saying, it's a damn fine rifle. I have no regrets or any other feelings other than those things just shoot.
They do, don't they?
They do. They're a pretty keen rifle.
Yeah.
Molded trigger guard, which isn't dissimilar to what the Mossberg's doing, but you look at everything where they're like, okay, we don't need this to be a detachable piece. It doesn't need to be a secondary assembly. Let's just make it a one thing. And like the stock, you look at the stock and it is what it is, right? It's a synthetic stock. There's nothing fancy about it. That is not what makes this rifle complete. It is, in fact, the barreled action. They are sweet. They just plain shoot.
They just tend to work.
They do.
Here we go. Comes with a one-piece base.
In fact.
I feel real good about that. The action does, part of the reason, I guess, that it comes with a one-piece base, the action goes around all the way over the top. It's not all open on the top like these other actions we've talked about.
Rigid.
But yeah, really, we talk about it so much, and I feel like it gets so much love from us. I feel like I can bring it back down to mortality here by saying that I do feel the stock leaves a little to be desired. It's a little thinner than other synthetic stocks, and especially where you sort of make your cheek weld, I find it to be quite skinny.
Sure.
And so something like a Bradley cheek rest works great on these to just beef it up a little bit. I see the Mossberg Patriot here has a nice kind of swell over on that left side for right-handed shooters. Probably a little more comfortable, but remedies do exist, easy ones do exist, or you can obviously go and change the stock later on. Magpul makes one that's pretty darn good, and lots of other people do. So
Ryan, is that more of a Monte Carlo?
No, that would be just called a cheek piece.
Looking at the Mossberg here. Yeah.
At the Mossberg, yeah. What would constitute a Monte Carlo?
A Monte Carlo would have a raised comb as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another noteworthy feature of the Patriot that none of the others have, it does have a fluted barrel. We're kind of going back to the Patriot here, but just if we're calling out features, if you're into fluted barrels, that's got one.
Good point, Mark.
Yep, good point.
I'd be curious if the Patriot comes in as many configurations as the Ruger American. We mentioned that earlier on. The Ruger American has the compact one like we're looking at now with a shorter barrel. It's got longer barreled variants. It has practically every caliber known to man. It has different color stocks. It's got, I feel like it's...
I'll tell you what, the Patriots have a lot of chamberings.
They do.
I've fired straight walls in the Patriots, and I've fired straight walls in the Americans.
Right.
And actually on the same range at the same time.
Yeah.
They make them in Magnum chamberings. They make them in standard chamberings. They don't make such a clean rimfire version. Like there's an American rimfire.
There is.
Yeah. But they do have rimfires.
Yeah.
Yeah. That gun, those two are in really close contention with each other.
Good guns.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong.
Yeah.
You just can't. I did shoot, and I mentioned it a few times, but I went to a long-range competition, the old Vortex Extreme. I went 2 years in a row with a Ruger American with the standard synthetic stock on it and a Razor 5-20 back when we still had those. They were one of the longest-standing rifle scopes in our entire lineup in history, but I went with that setup, and I did all right. Enough to have fun.
First Razor product I ever owned.
Yeah, likewise.
Retailing for about that 500 mark.
The Rugers here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a hard gun to beat for
well,
the money.
Well below our kind of $700 threshold here.
It is.
Yeah. Next up,
the Sauvage. The Sauvage, I see. I'll call it Savage now. I see it's got. Well, there's a lot going on here because we mentioned it's got a different bolt. This one has a nice one-piece rail. It's quite an extended one-piece rail.
That is an EGW standard rail.
Oh, so this was added after the
factory option.
Oh, factory option.
It is.
Oh, look at them. Look at nice job, EGW.
And warranted, and we'll talk on this rifle's action in a little bit here.
Yeah. And then the stock has some stuff going on. It appears to be quite modular.
In fact.
In some ways.
Yeah.
So let's dive into this thing.
So this gun came out a long time ago, not as the Axis. It was initially introduced as a gun called the Edge.
Oh, I remember that.
And that was only a short period, and then it was changed to the Axis. And it was a really interesting design. It reminded me a lot of a rifle that Savage made. I don't believe they still make it, called the Model 25, which was a really slick gun. That was a 3-lug bolt. The 25 was a really fascinating rifle. And they had it for a long time. It was a major departure. When you looked at the receiver, it was just like a tube that they cut a hole for the ejection port into. And that was that. And so when you're looking at this gun, the receiver terminates at the back, and there's not any like visible or discernible geometry cut into it like some of these other guns do that have like a rear bolt lug nesting area place. It doesn't exist. It just terminates. So the receiver itself is very simplistic in that it is a round stock with an ejection port and a hole drilled through it.
Very grease gun of them.
In fact, it is variable shoulder, as we talked about earlier. And if anything, it's very long. And so a challenge that you have with the Axis, and this is actually why we started carrying one-piece Picatinny rails here at Vortex for folks who walk in the door.
This is a long action. That's a 6.5 Creedmoor on the table, and it's notable.
They're long. We have a lot of customers come in with Axes and with Axes.
I think that's right.
Yeah. With the two-piece system, it's very challenging to mount modern rifle scopes on them because those islands are so far apart.
Gotcha.
And so as we kept telling folks, well, you got to find yourself a one-piece. Eventually, we just said, okay, we got to start carrying EGW one-piece bases here for customers that come in the door to get mounted up. It was because of the Axis. So if anything, its receiver is unnecessarily long for a lot of applications. Of course, you throw a one-piece pick rail on there, problem solved. Extremely utilitarian gun. Really, it's much the same as a Model 10, a fair bit different. Mark, would you grab that Model 10 behind you?
Oh, there's one just hanging out.
Here.
We do. It's kind of the wrong configuration to be included in this test, but nonetheless, it's worth noting. So the cool part I think about the Model 10s is that floating bolt and what they can do. So there's a working theory that says a floating bolt head can help concentricize the cartridge in the chamber and can yield some higher degree of accuracy, even some reliability because it's very forgiving. It's extremely modular. So if I had this Model 10 action and I had a cartridge that fit within its either magazine constraints or ejection port constraints, I can simply change the bolt head to accommodate a massive variety of
and of course the
chamberings.
barrel.
Yeah, correct. And the barrel. But the bolt head just comes off. And then you can change it from, say, a 223, which this one is, to a 308, to a short magnum, to something else, if it exists. You can even get like a Grendel PPC arc bolt face for these and slap together and good to go. 6.8 SPC, etc. So they took a lot of the best features of the Model 10 or Model 11 or Model 12 or Model 14 or Model 16, which are all kind of the same gun, just different flavors. And they built them into the very budget-minded Axis, which I always look at as an interesting blend of the Model 25 and Model 10.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very neat.
And here again, you speak to the modularity of their stocks. This is a relatively new thing for Savage. Actually, hold on. So the Model 10 that we have here, you can see this has taken another bit further. Modular cheek piece.
Yep.
So now we can amend comb height.
Mm-hmm.
And modular recoil system or recoil pad in the back. We can extend length of pull or diminish or decrease length of pull. Some of the other ones I do believe have grip modules as well.
I think that's what this one has. This one has multiple different modules. There's even one up here near the magazine
well filler
area. So what would that be?
Same stock, different magazine length. So one part, i.e. the stock, we put in a magwell filler block, and we can change it from a short magazine to a long magazine.
Gotcha.
Oh, got it. So basically, Savage is able to use the same stock for multiple different configurations themselves.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
It's not necessarily something that you as the end user would be messing with.
Yeah, not like a user
unless,
feature necessarily.
Got it.
Yeah.
But hey, I mean, good on them. It works.
But I'll say this, and you've heard me gripe in the past about how I hate how modern bolt rifles are stocked for iron sights. Not a single gun on the table has iron sights. Very few guns available in a modern bolt hunting rifle come with iron sights. They're all still stocked as if we're using iron sights.
It's true. You do need a cheek.
It's
some sort of a cheek
It's
riser.
an interesting phenomena that I don't know.
Makes me bonkers.
I think a lot of people don't realize how important getting your eye behind the rifle scope at the right height and length and all that. I don't think people realize enough how important that is.
Savage has come to the table as one of the singular manufacturers to address this in a factory option without being like a high-end custom adjustable stock.
Yeah, or like a chassis or something.
Yep. So modular cheek piece inserts. We just, last week, Travis Jones and I reconfigured a rifle for a gentleman. It was a Savage.
Yeah.
So he brought in his full palette of cheek piece additions, and we slapped them together and got him the perfect fit.
That's why our buddy Brad over at Bradley Cheek Rest is still making hay with his with his rest that he sells. I think we sell those things to people. We sell them on them all the time.
Yep.
Because it is so much better.
Might have a little aftermarket stuff going on at them.
I think so.
Factory.
When you go from sitting behind your rifle scope with just one of these regular stocks, and then you actually put an appropriate system on the stock, like the Bradley Cheek Rest, but there are many others too, of course. But like you just get your face and your eye in the right spot.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, what a difference it makes.
Yes.
The image of your rifle scope looks better. You're more comfortable. Your neck hurts less. I mean, everything is better.
Even
you're
recoil.
Just not fighting things.
Yeah.
You're not fighting. You're just more relaxed.
Even recoil mitigation is notably improved. So a well-fit rifle feels like it recoils less.
Sure. It does. Yeah. I would agree. So yeah, this Savage Axis sadly doesn't have the cheek comb adjustability, but it does have the length of pull adjustability, so kudos there. Cool gun. I do. It does have some interesting features that are, it's just different from the other ones on the table.
And moving on, the Winchester XPR.
The Winchester XPR.
Yep. So big departure from the Model 70, their iconic bolt rifle forever. The XPR is following the same lines as many of these other fat bolts do. That's a neat feature. We'll get to that in a little bit.
Please do. Very confused.
Can we back up? I've got one notable feature in a way of the Savage Axis.
Okay.
Retailing street price about $350.
Oh yeah,
No.
yeah, they're super affordable.
Oh my gosh. I always thought that the previous two we just talked about, the Patriot and the American, were the ones.
So
Generally,
when you're talking a little bit of the modularity in the stock and
holy crap.
you know,
that's
now,
different.
On the website, Ryan, I didn't see the model, and I'm not saying it doesn't exist with the rail on it though.
Yeah, they come with rails now.
Okay.
That's neat.
The guns are generally observed as bonkers accurate too. Like bonkers accurate.
Well, we were just talking about them in a different podcast the other day. Again, a different rifle, but man, those 110s that we had.
Oh yeah.
We talk about them all the time. They're legendary here at Vortex. They just hammered them.
Very much.
And that's actually predominantly my experience with Savage rifles, but it was definitely a positive experience.
In fact,
yes. Every time I hear the name Savage, I actually go back to the Savage 110 BA 338 Lapua with a PST Gen 1 624x50 on top.
Did you ever own one?
I never owned one, but I feel like I did vicariously via the thousands of customers of ours that did.
So on to the XPR.
Yeah.
So it's a fat bolt. So just like all the others that we mentioned, fat bolt, almost identical geometry. Side magazine release or side bolt release, just like all the others.
Have we ever tried just goofing around and seeing if we could swap bolts between some of these?
Oh boy,
I reckon you could, Jim. 308 Winchester. Grab me the rear American. Let's just see. Wow, that one's got some goofy geometry. Well, what the hell? We'll find out. We can always edit this out.
Yeah, let's say that we're not advocating for this. This is merely satisfying some sort of curiosity.
I put it in wrong. There we go. Nope, ain't going to go.
Negatory.
There's enough geometry difference there. Okay.
That's probably good.
I was curious.
Yeah.
It is probably good.
So it's fat bolt. So it's got all the things that we talk about that we like about fat bolts. It's a variable shoulder, which there's nothing wrong with that. And it's got a detachable box magazine that is eerily reminiscent of my favorite brand of rifles, detachable box magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Plastic detachable bottom metal, which again, I really don't have a problem with in general. And Jim had touched a button on here earlier and was like, what do? One thing with a lot of these bolt rifles, and we've talked about this on the Tika podcast, is with a Remington 700 style safety, a lot of guns do not allow the bolt to open on safe.
Okay.
So we have to move it into the fire position to open the bolt unless you push that button and then the bolt opens up.
Oh, that makes so much sense now.
Yeah.
Yes, that's nice.
Yeah, it is. That's a nice to have. And I don't understand why more guns don't incorporate something along those lines.
Like, I mean, but you say all you will about the fact, if you're observing all the firearm safety rule, then you're not going to have an issue if you just put it in the fire position and then, as far as safety goes, and then open the bolt. But like,
there's a mechanical.
Somebody figured out a way, and it doesn't seem that it's all that complicated because it's in an affordable budget style platform.
Yep.
They figured out a way that you don't have to put it in the fire position, and you can just still open the bolt. Yep. It just makes sense.
And I like it. And I like the fact that there's a mechanical block that's preventing my trigger from actuating.
Yeah.
And I can still open my bolt, which is cool. So these are actually really pretty remarkable guns. And if you're a Winchester purist, that means you love Model 70s. And a Model 70 is a wildly different gun than an XPR. But here again, there ain't a damn thing wrong with an XPR. They really, really do a good job. These guns are generally observed as spectacularly accurate. Their fit and finish is amongst the best on the table. Despite being a simple synthetic stock with a plastic bottom metal on them, they really are a pretty well buttoned up gun. A couple things I really like about them. There are 840s on the top of the receiver versus 648 that a lot of these guns are employing.
Oh, you're referring to the fastener size. It is beefier hole there for the fastener for the scope bases to go in. That's nice.
Why the gun industry is still stuck on 648s.
They're diminutive. They're so tiny.
Find 648s in a hardware store. You almost can't.
Oh, yeah. Well, that too.
Yeah. It's kind of a goofy proprietary fastener, and they're used in the gun industry like crazy, and I don't get it. An 840 is a better solution.
They seem to, I guess the smaller fasteners seem to hold up fine. It's not that they just break or anything like that. But like it just, we're not seeing it's not like a quarter 20 hole on the top of that thing. It's still nice and svelte, and I'm sure you could still get like that makes sense as well.
Better hole.
A better hole exists.
These are really good guns. They really are.
I like that one.
I'm putting them in kind of another subcategory within this, and that's like the upper echelon subcategory. Fit, finish, feel. Their triggers are pretty darn special too. That's a criteria that maybe we'll weigh in on too. You know, we'll get a pull gauge and we'll do like factory set trigger. Pretty solid brake on them. Not a lot of over travel. Not a lot of take up. Good trigger. Mm-hmm. They feel nice.
Is this is just a body line here, or is this actually a separate piece? Oh yeah, it almost looked like it had the ability to change your cheek weld with an insert there, but that's just design there. Very cool. It doesn't have one of them. What was the term that we used? The AccuSet trigger, or the AccuTrigger, or whatever.
Yeah,
it doesn't have one of those. I know. I still can't get over it.
Try the pull on that thing.
All right, I still can't get over the AccuTrigger. You know, I have some precision guns now and stuff that don't have them.
Do you like it?
What?
Do you like it?
I do like it.
Some people once you go to them, there's like a deliberate mental component where you're taking
That's
that
really
out.
nice, actually.
Yeah. It's Winchester's MOA trigger system.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's
Why don't you
that's pretty exceptional.
bring that over here?
Try the Franchi too, though. This one will surprise you.
I'll give it that.
Should we do this all at once? As
Why
kind
not?
of like a we're going kind of hodgepodge here.
It is a little hodgepodge. Sorry, Mark.
It's a 10-minute talk that's gone at least 14 minutes.
Not as good, but good, in my opinion. Well, okay, it's nearly there. I was just messing with the trigger on the Franchi here.
I can tell you, I wouldn't need to change that one bit.
Nope. No, you don't need to mess with that one on the Winchester. That is something special. But yeah, I just like you said, it's something that we're like when you are able to like mentally and physically begin your trigger press on that AccuTrigger blade thing. Yep. It's something like, okay, I'm settling in and I like it. But that was really nice.
I think whatever, it's just what you're getting used to though. Like that's your expectation when you're running that gun. If I shot that Winchester a lot, I'd know exactly what was going on with that thing too.
Yeah.
You would just initiate your shot process a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I remember on my first Ruger American, it was like the 7 stages of pulling the trigger because there was like 7 different feels that you got until the gun went off. But I memorized them and I got to know it was like entering into the zone, you know, as you just be like, okay, all right, we're going to get through that. We're going to get through that. And it's going to go off any minute now. And I know it's going to go off now. You get used to it. Whatever you got, you get used to it.
Well, you like, manual transitions, Jim. So you're like, okay, we're in first, second, third,
That's right.
Fourth,
yeah.
Here we go. We're getting there.
The old 6-speed trigger. So Winchester, good gun.
Yeah.
Good gun.
That trigger, that's a selling feature for me.
It is. It's very good.
I mean, and I don't think any of these have been bad, and they're all, like we said, a couple different styles here, and you're going to get by with all of them. But I really like that one personally.
Yep. The last one on the table is from your
about 540 on that one too.
Thank you.
XPR.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That is. Yeah. I was expecting in the 6s, if not touching 7 almost.
And the last gun
from Browning.
It's very much the same as the Winchester.
They're pretty similar.
What my favorite part is
it's also got a button on the near the
bolt. So
does that accomplish the same task?
Yes. So tank safety, but bolt release.
Really? Okay. So so multiple people have figured it out.
Yeah. So these guns are nearly interchangeable. My nod goes to the Browning, personally, just due to further stylization. The fun part about this is they retained this very classic bolt handle. Like
I do like that.
And their cocking piece or their cocking piece shroud. It's like you took the bolt and everything everybody loved about it and you just made it the bolt 3. So they went to a fat bolt again. See, we have a fat bolt here.
Turn up.
Fat bolt. Yeah. I almost bet that one would drop right in there.
You got me curious.
We got 840s on top, which I really like. They've got some different receiver sculpting that they've done compared to the XPR. And they really put a nice piece of equipment together. And I liked the original bolt. No, a little bit of
quite
fit there. They've got that figured out. You can't monkey with these things.
That is nice.
Yeah. So I like the original bolt. I like the bolt 3 maybe even better.
What would you like better about it? Curiosity.
It's for the price point.
Okay.
What it's bringing to the table. The other A-Bolt 2s and A-Bolts originals.
Yeah, I guess I have A-Bolt 2s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're a more finished gun.
Mm-hmm.
But there might have been a little bit more value in the finish cost than there was in the performance category.
Okay.
And this is all the performance.
Utility.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
These are really, really cool guns. And there's nothing I don't not like about them.
Do they make a more compact version? That thing
Yeah,
is...
they do.
They do.
Do they? That's nice, because that one's pretty long.
Yeah, I think they're long range hunter.
I'm turning a bit
Synthetic.
European in my preference of barrel lengths. That wasn't a euphemism, but
And swimsuits.
and swimsuits. He says.
Sure.
Not sure I'm fully Europe there yet, but that one is the longest barrel on the table, though. What is that chambered in? Is this just a 6.5 Creed? Made in Japan, Morocco. It is a 6.5 Creed.
I would say that one's the Cadillac of the lot. Well, Franchi's
Let me see.
special.
Can I see the? Okay, hold on. I'm gonna.
Which one do you want to see, Mark?
Let me see the Browning here. I don't like that trigger as much as I do the.
You could amend it.
When you say that, what do you mean? Different trigger or mess with that one? Are they adjustable?
Yeah.
Do any of these not have adjustable triggers, Ryan?
No, as far as I know, there's a degree of a user adjustability in all of them.
Got it.
So, like you said, maybe that's. Nothing wrong with that.
No. They're all good.
Yeah.
I've got the Franchi Momentum right now.
Check the CVA here real quick.
I can say this.
Now's the time where we just start.
With all of them
Goofing.
that I've tested so far, I've definitely had worse.
Sure.
You know, it's just one of those things that you get where it's just like the guns went, wow, that was not bad at all. That was a CVA. We've been staring at these guns the entire time on the table, but sometimes you're like, oh, let me just double check that chamber. Not to toot my own safety police horn or anything, but
I like that CVA too.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. Some good guns on the table. Boy, oh boy. You know,
so far for me, trigger-wise, it's the CVA and that...
XPR.
And the XPR, the Winchester XPR.
I have a question. It's one of those questions that I don't really know how to ask until I just start speaking. The American rifle, bolt-action hunting rifle, it would seem to me people have been using them for a long time.
It's been a minute.
Right. And if I know anything about the general population of people, it's that the general population will tend to want something that's more utilitarian and more affordable.
Seems.
So the idea of the affordable rifle or something that was the everyman's bolt-action rifle would seem to have been around for a while, right? I mean, if you go back in history, there has to have been some.
Yes.
But I feel like we had a bit, and we're now enjoying the fruits of what was a bit of a renaissance there for a while, where all of a sudden everyone started making. I don't know if it was just that like synthetic stock, like was it the fact they all started getting synthetic stocks, and that made it. I don't know what it was, but I feel like we got a ton in pretty short order. But obviously before that, it's not like we just recently invented the affordable, decent bolt-action rifle.
No, that's a great point and an interesting observation. These guns would be departures from the classic American bolt gun. A couple models I'm going to throw out. Winchester Model 70. What happened in 1964? They changed from what is now known as the pre-64 action to a more affordable version. Their fit and finish changed. Many people say it went down. You know, they went from, hand-cut checkering to press checkering, and they went to different finishes on the stock, and they simplified the action. Most of those guns still shot exceptionally well. They just weren't the classic. And that trend continued. The Remington 700 arguably is following that same line, a more simplified bolt design compared to like the Model 30 that predated it. And we kind of stayed on that path for a long time. And then all of a sudden people wanted that lux back. And then that pendulum swung, and Winchester reintroduced the control round feed guns. Remington poured gas on the CDL line, the Classic Deluxe. And we got edition guns that were fancier. Weatherby's Mark Vs, which actually they never really changed course. They went from a Mauser, like an FN-style Mauser action, to then the Mark V action as we know it.
Yeah.
And, they had affordable synthetic models, and then they had all the way up to like the Euromark, Laser Mark, and the deluxe models.
So it's almost, you're describing like a generational thing.
It kind of seems that way, and I can't quite put my finger on it because I don't know if I'm bothered by the fat bolt design or if I'm championing the fat bolt design. I think I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth when I say it's got a fat bolt. So we've seen this pendulum swing a couple times now, where we've had the deluxe throw the kitchen sink at the mechanisms in layout and design, and then we've had the simplification. And I think we're definitely on the simplification stroke, but I don't think it's a bad thing.
Right.
And I think that guns like the XPR, the AB3, the American, the Momentum, and the Cascade are showing us that you can do a lot with a little. And it wouldn't take a heck of a lot to take an action. I'm just going to pick on the Ruger here, is like the most bare bones version of it and gussy it up a little bit, and you end up with a gun like the Momentum. So these two are not dissimilar in layout, like how they work and what they are under the hood. You just add a little bit of fit, finish, and accoutrement here, and you get into a really special gun.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole bunch of guns. Actually, in Italy, there's a group called the Italian Firearms Group, and then a company called Sabati. That if you look at Sabati and you look at Franchi, you're going to see some very close parallels. And in the Sabati line, you can get some very nice looking hunting rifles.
Yeah.
Fancy wood stocks, hand cut checkering, beautiful fit finish, etc., that are employing that. And I almost think that this is a somewhat renaissance in manufacturing, in which this is now the new standard. You're seeing it in its most simplified form, and in short order, you're going to see it probably in an upgraded version, better fit, better finish, incorporation of the old style of dressing up a rifle into this new style of modern manufacturing in which this fat bolt is employed.
I think you're probably right there. I think, I think that in a lot of areas within consumerism history and stuff like that, I mean, you've had things like that where companies will come out with something and they catch a wide swath of buyers, and they capture those buyers for an extended period of time. Those people become sort of loyal to their brand, and even a sub-brand within the brand. So say, you have Ruger, but then you have the American brand within that. And they capture them, and then they wind up subsequently, because those people become, I'm an Axis guy.
Yeah.
So then you buy the Axis for as long as you keep buying rifles, and so then you, though, naturally, you age, your preferences change, what you need changes, and therefore the company has to change the firearm to match those consumers that they first grabbed when they came out with a new thing. But eventually you've got, older buyers with different needs, and then the young next generation coming up, and the next generation wants their own thing. They don't want to be like dad or mom or whatever, and so they get their own thing when the company finally comes out with a new thing.
We see it with rifle scopes.
Yeah. It's just it's waves. And it's generational. I do feel like these rifles, they kind of embody to me, though, like I typically picture, like a younger, newer shooter. Hey, I'm just getting into this thing. I'm going to get my first rifle. I don't know whether I'm going to be primarily hunting, or I don't know, maybe I'm just going to go to the range a lot or what. But this thing seems to check the boxes. People say they perform well. It's fairly inexpensive. It looks more modern. It's made out of, something that's I'm not going to have to take a lot of care of necessarily, with the synthetic stocks and maybe a Cerakoted barrel. But yeah, we'll just see how this goes. And, later on down the line, maybe now they're into it, they do want the fancier version.
Budget rifle shootout.
Oh, you want to go shoot him now?
Oh, we should have. We got it, don't we? I mean,
I think we do got it. Do we?
Do we have the we've got these calibers.
I mean, I did select those two caliber. They're going to be either all one or the other, but some conglomeration of 6.5 Creed or 308 amongst the bunch here, which I did strategically pick those in the event we wanted to
pull some triggers
with them.
We should. Should.
I mean, they're all sub 700. Some are, right at the cusp of that $700 mark, and some are well below it. So it's hard for me to pick a winner out of the bunch. Like if you just said it had to be below that threshold, pick whichever one you want, I'd be like, okay, I've got some ideas.
Sure. You know who the winner is?
But there are some winners because of their price point alone and what they offer.
You know who the winner is? It's us.
The shooter.
We win.
The shooter.
The shooter wins.
Yeah.
Like you'll look at, because you could close your eyes, grab any one of these, and whatever you end up with, good.
It'll serve you well.
That dog will hunt. Like
it is a hell of a time to be a shooter on the landscape,
dude. It's great, and the same goes for optics too. Yeah. Because I mean, you could go in our lineup and close your eyes again, grab a scope, and it'll go on top of one of these things. And it'll hunt. I mean, it's just there's so many good options that you don't have to be like some, multi-decades, professional, knows everything about, whatever. You don't have to be that. You could just be.
Well, I mean, Cody, and we did a little thing on it, but he grabbed one of those Savage Axis. I believe he threw a Venom on it.
Yeah.
EGW rail. Gosh. What else? Was that pretty much it? Oh, a set of pro rings, and went to the range and shot 1,000 yards. First round impact. Huh?
Ding ding ding.
Right, and that was a sub $1,000 setup.
No.
Yep. Start to finish. It's like, I mean, to think that you could get all of those components, compile them, and go reliably shoot 1,000 yards. Is pretty dumbfounding when not that long ago, that would have been newsworthy.
Yes.
Yeah. Was that a redux of the original video that we did many moons ago?
It was. But it was less, it was very brief. It was more of like a, like Instagram Reel-esque.
Oh, got it, yeah. Well, because we made the mistake last time of using a suppressor, which we use on many different firearms on that particular gun, and an Atlas bipod, which we swapped from many different guns on that gun, which did increase the value over $1,000, but were completely unnecessary. But the commenters, a few of them, couldn't get over it. But yes, very, very doable for less than $1,000. You could even go way less than $1,000. You don't even have to be bumping that ceiling to get something that's
he had ammo money left
capable.
Over. He had a lot of ammo money left over.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what the final tally was.
And that a bit more of a long range play with the Venom. You could also slap a Crossfire 3-9 on one of these things and off to the races. And that's pretty cool. So you win, shooters, consumers. You win in this. So
you can get a heck of a lot for relatively little these days, that's for sure.
And not have to worry about what we talked about, cheap guns, and I'm making air quotes, cheap guns before. Like, it's going to fall apart after 80 rounds. No. Not a one of these. Good to hook.
We can confirm, too, based on lots of experience,
in fact,
that they don't fall apart immediately at all.
Nope, these are lifetime guns.
Uh-huh.
Very cool.
Good deal.
Leave no budget rifle unturned. There's probably a couple out there.
Yeah, I know it. I feel bad. Our table isn't big enough.
I would ask the listeners out there, what do they think falls into this sub $700 category they like?
They'll know what we missed. Of course, they may point out, and we talked about it before the podcast, that there was a Tikka rifle in a particular spec that was very curiously a bit fluid between whether it identified as a sub $700 or an over $700 rifle, and we just couldn't. In good faith, we couldn't just decide that because we found it in one website in some obscure location for just shy of $700, it just seemed to.
In general, it seemed to not by much, but breach that threshold.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to go like, well, that's just a little bit more. That's a little bit. You know,
You got to set up. You got to set.
We drew a line in the proverbial sand.
Mark was very stern and staunch with this.
And you know what? I'm proud of him for it, Mark. I'm proud of you.
You know,
thank you.
I'm amazed.
He's a penny pincher in general. There's no such thing as expired food in Mark's fridge. It's just opportunities.
You know what it's it's opportunities to push the limit.
I was getting really good at that, rolling the dice. And a few months ago, I paid the price, and that was like a very large mental setback for me.
14-month-old yogurt.
When you pay, and was it also not refrigerated for the last 2 weeks?
I don't. Here's what I don't know what happened, but it was gross. And now, if something's been in the fridge for
more than a month,
I'm done rolling the dice.
I've just never. I wouldn't be surprised at all to find a situation where like you just reach in your backpack and you're like, huh, when did I put this yogurt in here? And be like,
I like yogurt.
Just start.
I'll eat expired yogurt that's been refrigerated.
You'll also eat not expired yogurt that hasn't been refrigerated and has been sitting in your car in a backpack all morning in the baking sun.
You get a little time.
No, that's incorrect, actually. Room temp
Is it incorrect?
Yes, 100%. Room temp for a few hours, I'll eat that.
I'm with Mark. I'll tell you what.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. You look at how yogurt's made, it's...
Yeah.
It's going back. That's how...
I'll tell you what I have had that is sketchy is Mongolian yogurt, which is a dry product.
Like a powdered yogurt?
No, it's like a how would I describe it? It's like chalk.
Where did you get this and have this?
From a gentleman named Itterbot, and it was a...
That sounds like you wouldn't have to refrigerate it then?
No, it's dried yogurt. Kevin Murphy, world's greatest small game hunter.
Yeah.
First time I met him, he just got back from Mongolia. I'm like, do you have any yogurt? And he's like, oh, did I? He's like, I can't believe that stuff. It's like chalk. And not for me, personally.
It seems like you would want to mix it with something.
Well, it's a really good way to make that protein and nutrient package portable.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then like it just seems like...
It was not great.
Be like,
I've eaten a lot of weird stuff. It probably... I mean, if it's a survival food.
It's in a blueberry or two, you know?
Yeah. But I'm with Mark on room temp yogurt. I actually prefer it to cold yogurt. And if I like Noosa. You ever had Noosa?
Mm-mm.
That's good yogurt. I like the rhubarb and the honey.
Oh, that sounds
and I like
good.
that
I like
warm.
those two things.
That's
yeah,
pristine. It's very good.
Been eating a lot of honey lately.
It's good. It's good for you.
It is.
I've been thinking about getting into bees.
Don't tease me.
No, Mark, I'm not.
I've been trying to get you into bees for a while.
The queen's
I've
creepy
been into
out.
bees, kind of.
Oh.
Sort of. Ipso
When?
facto. A guy I bought my house from, he's into bees, so we were into bees. Got stung a bunch, got a lot of honey, jarred it, sold it. It was a whole thing.
You don't do that currently, though, right?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
And I'd like to.
The queen thing just creeps me out, man. I just can't believe that actually functions the way that it does.
I tell you what, he got a
mind-blowing.
bee, and she Africanized the colony. They became very aggressive, and we just burned it. Like, could not leave the house.
Yeah, see that, you know.
It was bad news bears.
These are cool, man. Very fascinating. Extremely fascinating creatures.
Budget rifles.
Yeah, should we?
That was a 10 times 10 minute talk.
Yeah, and then we just made it worse.
Whatever.
And sidetracked it at the end.
At this point.
There you have it. Budget rifle roundup. What did we get right? Did we get anything wrong? Which ones did we miss? Which ones have you been using, finding success with? Which ones have you customized a little bit? Like Jim's Ruger American.
Do you need to spend more?
It's not even a Ruger
Ooh,
anymore.
of course you do.
Are you a person who owns a high-end model and a budget rifle? And have you found yourself in the same position that Mark, James, and I have, where all of a sudden these budget rifles shoot better than some of our very expensive?
I was going to say, have you ever pulled your hair out because your budget rifle shot better than your expensive rifle?
Yeah.
Let us know.
Yep.
These are cool. Like we said earlier, boy, the consumer's the winner these days. Some cool stuff for pretty moderate prices. So thanks, everybody, for listening. Shoot straight, spend less. We'll catch you on the next one.
See ya.
Bye.